Have you found someone to watch Alycia while you're at work?" She shrugged, unwilling for Esther to take on that worry, but honesty wouldn't allow her to leave it alone, and finally she shook her head. "I'll keep praying." Esther spoke with confidence, although her voice was weak. "God knows what you need. He will provide." Real faith was another blessing from Esther. Before meeting her, all Brooklyn had known were rules, restrictions, and God's wrath. She'd lived in expectation of the Almighty slapping her down whenever she displeased him, which she had been guaranteed to do on a daily basis. That was the God Brooklyn had learned from her father. But Esther had introduced her to a God who loved her, to a Savior who had willingly died for her, to a Spirit who renewed her mind and gave her strength. "It's going to be all right." Now it was Esther's turn to squeeze Brooklyn's hand. "You'll see." From behind them came a male voice. "Hey, are one of you ladies named Meyers?" Brooklyn twisted in her lawn chair. "I am." "Got a delivery for you." He held up a legal-sized overnight envelope. "Need you to sign for it." Brooklyn frowned, unable to imagine any reason for express mail. She wasn't behind on her rent or her cell phone bill. Her few friends lived right here in Reno, and she never shopped online. "Are you sure it's for me?" she asked as she stood. The young man, dressed in a cotton shirt and shorts, looked at the large envelope again. "Brooklyn Meyers, Myers, apartment 12B. Alycia appeared at her side. "What have you got, Mom?" "I don't know," she answered her daughter. Then to the delivery man she said, "That's me." She walked toward the breezeway where he stood, Alycia following along. He handed her the stylus, then held a device toward her. She scribbled her name on the small screen, hoping it wasn't required that it actually looked like her signature. "Here you go." He took back the stylus and replaced it with the envelope. "Thank you." She watched him stride toward the parking lot. "What is it, Mom?" Alycia asked again. "I'm not sure. Just a lot of papers, it feels like." "Oh." Disappointment laced the words before her daughter returned to the grass and her book. Brooklyn's gaze lowered to the sender's address on the thick envelope. Hodges, Thurber, and Williams, attorneys at law, Miami, Florida. Why would some lawyer in Florida send her overnight mail? Her stomach clenched with sudden nervousness as she flipped the envelope over. Thunder Creek, Idaho. Derek Johnson stopped at the northeast corner of his 3-acre farm. Since buying the property 6 years earlier, he'd slowly cultivated more and more of it, changing the land from pasture to neat rows of vegetables. In addition, a small apple orchard, 6 trees planted by a previous owner, sat in the northwest corner of the property. Eventually, he planned to expand the orchard, adding more apple trees and other kinds of fruit as well, maybe next year. In the beginning, he'd sold his produce on weekends from booths at farmers' markets or from the back of his pickup at popular spots along the highway. But for the last 2 growing seasons, after receiving his organic certification, he'd been able to sell direct to a couple of small-town grocery stores. It had definitely made his life easier and his income slightly more certain. One of his favorite books on the subject of organic gardening for profit said it was possible, if done properly, to make a living of $60,000 or more per year on 1.5 acres. Perhaps that was true, but as of yet, he wasn't finding it that profitable. Besides, he wanted more than simply to make a living. He wanted to expand, to experiment, to offer the best produce available in this county and the ones surrounding it. His gaze shifted to the neighboring land. All 10 acres of the Hallston property lay in a tangle of weeds and bare ground. There was so much he'd be able to do with those additional acres once they were his. Another 6 months, and he should have the down payment required by the bank. "Lord willin' and the creek don't rise," he muttered to himself. Impatience welled up inside him. What he wouldn't give to be able to buy that land now, to be able to expand his operation this growing season rather than the next. He longed for the day he could quit working as a part-time sheriff's deputy